from the bilateral talks and discussions, both official and non-official, does the Minister sense that the Malaysian government is sincere in resolving the various bilateral issues between the two countries on a win-win basis?
Thank you, Mr. Singh. It's a salient question, but actually more complicated than it sounds. First of all, we start on the basis that we're two sovereign nations. But we're two sovereign nations with a complicated history. And therefore, we must always expect problems to arise. We must never be surprised by problems. They will arise, and as I said just now, the only question is how we approach these problems. And it's the point behind your question, the spirit behind our attempts to resolve this problem. Now, when you're dealing with foreign policy, I find it very useful to clearly separate in my mind national interests from personal ties and personal relationships. And let me explain. In the case of Singapore, our top paramount imperative is to protect our sovereignty and independence, our national interests. Second imperative, to abide by international law. Third imperative is to fully honor all agreements which we have solemnly entered into. Because after all, if you don't honor past agreements, what value do future agreements make? It is only after you settle these three things, right? National interests, international law, abiding with agreements. Then the individuals, the ministers, the officials, the agencies come into it. And I'd like to share with you a discussion which I had with Minister Azmin last night. And we both concluded that it is important that ministers and officials take the attitude of trying to solve problems, not aggravate them, not make them worse. Specifically to your question, I think I can quite confidently state for the record that all my interactions with Minister Saifuddin and Minister Azmin, I have found them to be sincere, constructive, helpful, and I believe both of them, and I hope they also reflect a larger body of opinion within Malaysia. Understand that the long-term interests of Singapore and Malaysia is best secured by working together, resolving differences, expanding areas of collaboration, looking for new things that we can do. One point which I also discussed with Minister Azmin, who is, as you know, in charge of economic affairs in Malaysia, I said, look, the world is changing in such a rapid manner. We need to focus on updating, upskilling, transforming our economies, and working together, and not be caught using unnecessary bandwidth, fighting unnecessary conflicts. So, sorry to give you a long answer, but my short answer to you is, as far as the two whom I've interacted the most intensively, the answer is yes. I do detect sincerity on their part. But never make the mistake of assuming that personal ties can be a replacement for national interests, international law, or complying with agreements. So we always aim for good interpersonal ties. We always talk about friendship between countries. But remember that friendship between countries is to advance national interests. You never compromise national interests in order to have better relations. So it's a discipline which I always maintain in all my relations with my counterparts. I'm pretty sure if you spoke to Minister Saifuddin or Minister Azmin, they would say something pretty much the same. And I do my best to make sure I am never the cause, the source of a problem. I try to be helpful.